Hey, hi, welcome back to Celebrate 2026. I am your host, Praveen, just here for the conversations. As always, we try to celebrate stories from our extraordinary class, try to highlight stories of our classmates who we generally don't get to hear. Today, I'm very, very excited to introduce my friend, Jacob. His success stories often sound smooth in hindsight, but real growth usually is hard earned and built through setbacks, and most people never see them. Today's guest, Jacob, is someone whose journey really stayed with me, from rebuilding to confidence to leading teams and managing operations, now pursuing his executive MBA at the UCLA. Uh, Jacob has a lot to offer to us today. Let's get into his story. Hey, Jacob, welcome. How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm good.
I just want to take this moment sitting here with you to just kind of acknowledge the full circle moment based on how we started the program, right?
I'm saving it for my end, you know.
Are you? Okay.
Go for it. It's okay.
But yeah, I mean, so I remember the first time I met you on the bus to Beach Day.
Yeah.
Just a couple of introverts sitting on the bus. We introduced ourselves, made a little chit chat, and then promptly sat in silence for 20 minutes until we got there.
Yeah.
But now, 22 months later, I'm sitting here with a friend. We're recording this podcast with lights and cameras. It's a very LA moment.
Yeah.
And it feels very full circle. So I'm happy to be here, and I'm happy to be here with you.
Thank you so much, Jacob. Yeah, that's a full circle moment. You're totally right when you say that. I was exactly thinking about it the same. For people, those who don't know the context, so I met Jacob during our what we call, what I don't remember the day we call it. Basically, we
Beach
had
Day.
a beach day where the entire class of 2026 met for the first time, and we were going back in a bus back to UCLA after the event. Jacob was sitting next to me. We, apart from exchanging our names for half an hour, probably we did not speak to each other. I'm one of the no I'm an introvert, and so is Jacob. But I think one incident through the class changed the whole thing, and no, I can say he's one of the kindest people in our class, and probably one of my favorite persons in our class.
Thank you. It's very kind.
My first question to you is, why an MBA?
So, in my industry, it's a niche of the environmental industry where we do air pollution testing. So, if you think about it as kind of like a smog check for industrial facilities, really small industry, maybe 3,000 people nationwide across all companies. And everybody starts where I started as a technician, climbing smokestacks, doing the actual science, and then you learn as you go. And some people often move into management, but nobody, or I should say very few of them, have any sort of formal business education. But the higher you go within any of those organizations, you really need those skills. And the environmental industry, there's a lot of senior people that are like in that probably 5 years from retirement phase. They have a heap of knowledge, both technical and business, but all of it has been earned the hard way. Trial and error, failures, learning from your mistakes. And I didn't want to take that long path. I've been thinking about doing an MBA for a long time. But field work is intense, so oftentimes you're working 60 plus hours a week or so. So there wasn't a whole lot of time for it. But the key driver really for me was to level up. I'd had some success at the operations level, and my kids were at an age where they were back in school or about starting school. So I thought it was time while they were still young, but not so young that I'm still one-arming everything, right? So it was an ideal time. I applied to USC and UCLA. I got into both, but Anderson was the top choice the entire time.
Yeah, you also bring a different perspective. This is something I always wanted to ask you. You drive all the way from close to Bakersfield, right?
Mhm.
And you were part of the monthly group. Now
Yeah.
you actually moved to the bi-weekly group. Why are you taking so much pain to actually travel every second week to class?
Um, so initially, I was pretty naive about the value. Um, I really was looking at it from a skills building lens and not a networking lens. And so I initially signed up for the monthly program because I thought that would be easier on the family and I would still get what I needed from the program. And that just, it turned out not to be the case. So I didn't realize how, how much the people would shape my journey or me. And I just needed to be with you guys more often. So spoke with my wife and was like, look, this is going to be harder on the family. It's going to cost us more because I'm going to be in hotels. But the return, I think, is going to vastly outweigh that time cost and that financial burden. So she was like, if you think it's the right move, I'll support you and we'll figure it out.
So you see, uh, not say the return. You see a total difference between how monthly's class works to the bi-weekly class, not just in terms of the class, the whole atmosphere. You see that you got that value out.
Yeah, I think so. I ended up in the blue section, which is our smallest section, and coming from the monthly section, which is our biggest section. I would say I describe it as being a much more intimate experience. You don't need the professors don't need to tightly manage the number of comments or questions because that monthly group is so big. It's hard to get airtime, and it's hard to have like a wide-ranging discussion because there's so many voices in the room. But then when I got to blue and it's like half the size, you could have those back and forth exchanges without it like running off the rails and eating the rest of the lesson. And so I found that I think I learned a little bit better, certainly got to know people better, and it was certainly worth the sacrifice.
Awesome. And earlier when we spoke, you did share that no, your journey was not a straight line to success. You want to take us back?
Yeah. So I'm a first like I'm a first generation college student. Like my folks didn't go to undergrad. In fact, my mom's dad didn't even graduate high school because back in Minnesota, school was for girls and boys worked on the farm. So it was a pretty, from a family perspective, it was, an accomplishment to go to college, and both my brother and I did. We're the first on that side of the family to go. But I was not prepared when I got there. When I stepped onto that UC Davis campus, it was a hard realization that like literally everybody there was as smart, and many of them were smarter than me. And because I coasted through high school, so it was time to really do the academic work, and I was unprepared. I was disorganized. I wasn't disciplined, and I ended up getting dismissed. I changed my major at the end of my fourth year. I told myself, yeah, I'll be able to handle 18 units a quarter and work and do fraternity, and it ended me on academic probation. And then again, and then a counselor was like, you got to get it together or we're going to cut the cord here. And I flamed out. So they dismissed me and said, you got to take at least a year off. And I did that. I moved up with my brother who was going to Chico State, and just worked. I ended up at a temp agency. So the first gig they sent me on was a lumber mill. So I was out there doing that work, and then that engagement ended. And then they sent me to like manufacture parts. So I was just kind of a cog. It was just like, take this thing from the assembly line, put it in the machine, pull it out of the machine, send it down to the assembly line. And then that engagement ended. And then the final one was they sent me to go like literally dig ditches. So I'm out there, and I'm not even like in a field. It was like an irrigation thing. So I'm like under these stairs, hunched over, like the Hunchback of Notre Dame or something, right? I'm like digging this ditch and making minimum wage and just squandering my potential. So that was sort of the bottom, right? And I was just like, I have to do something else. So I reached out to the counselor that dismissed me, said, hey, what do I have to do to get back in? She's like, you got to come and work summer classes. And so I did that. But at the time I was working full-time at a retail job. So I was driving an hour and a half to class, kind of like I am now, doing class, coming back and doing a job. I didn't quite hit the grades that I was supposed to. And the counselor was just like, you failed to clear the bar again. But then I told her, it was like, look, I'm working full time, I'm commuting in. And she's like, oh, what? I didn't know that. Like, that changes the narrative a little bit. Like, you did fine enough to get in. So she admitted me. I finished with Danielle. So we graduated the same year. My brother graduated the same year. But that was 2008. So it wasn't a great time to leave college and in the workforce.
Thanks for sharing that very personal, intimate journey. So what I respect is, you did not give up. Something in you actually asked you to, get back up, and not giving up is actually a great trait. Was there a realization through this process? What made you change?
It was really that last job from that temp agency. I'm out there, like I said, digging ditches. The guy who's out there supposed to be supervising me is like, you're doing fine, I'll be back. And so just there by myself with my thoughts, and I'm just like, something's got to change.
You did touch about Danielle, your wife, who
Mm-hmm.
I kind of feel so great that she was standing by you during this tough phase. Probably helped you to get back to where you are right now. That's so nice to hear that. Do you want to share something about her contribution?
Yeah, I mean, she's the through line. She's the guiding light. She's the reason I think that I went back and finished. I saw her working hard. She finished in 4 years. It took me, all told, 8 to get my act together, if you include the break. But I mean, even at the start of my career, right? Like I mentioned, like I graduated into GFC, so jobs were scarce. She was with me at the career fair on campus, where I had made this list of employers that I wanted to talk to, and none of it was going well, and I was sort of defeated. I had one left on my list, and I was going to skip it. And she's like, Jake, just go talk to him. And so I did. I talked to Tom. He owned the business. He was an Aggie. We hit it off, and he's like, come interview with me on Tuesday. And I got the gig, and it was an industry that I had no idea existed at that point. But I mean, really, without that push from her, I would never have ended up in the industry that I'm in. And so she is sort of the origin of that as well. So not only did she get me like motivated to get back into school, she pushed me to go talk to Tom, and that sort of started this whole environmental journey.
One thing I want to tell you is share for viewers is how closely connected we are, not just our classmates. We have a WhatsApp group for English Premier League football. The most famous person in that group is his wife. Right. I keep seeing her. She of course good that we have such a community here, not just us, no, even our extended family is part of that community, and everybody is so welcoming. Is something so refreshing for me, at least personally.
Yeah, I think that's been a really important part for me, is to engage my family as much as possible, especially the girls, because I'm gone so often, especially with the move to biweekly. So I'm missing things at home. And so if I can bring them into events or on campus or expose them, that's really important.
Nice. And just pivoting a bit, you are an AI Perplexity Fellow, if I'm not wrong. And
yeah.
Nowadays it's all about AI. Has the school in any way changed your perspective, usage, or any adjective you want to use in terms of getting comfortable with AI?
It's been instrumental. I didn't use AI at all before coming here. Mm-hmm. A big piece of that is because the companies I was working for, I mean, effectively they were afraid of it. It was just like, AI is verboten. Do not put it on our systems. Do not put client data in there. Like, you were not allowed. And so I was like, well, if I can't use it in the majority of my day, I'm probably just not going to engage with it. And then at Anderson, so many of our classmates were like just well versed from the jump, and I felt a little bit behind, and I still do feel a little bit behind. But I think it's not something you need to compare yourself to others with, right? Like if you're on your own path, you can certainly look to others as examples and ask for help. And I think that's the key to my growth, is just like raising my hand and be like, I'm drowning here, throw me a lifeline. And one of the fantastic things about Anderson is that if you say that, like 14 lifelines come down out of nowhere, it's just like, oh, hey, everybody wants to help. So I love that about that. But yeah, I mean, it's been a pretty dramatic change. And that's one of the reasons like I even applied for the fellowship.
Awesome. And I know you had talking of return on investment or impact. Mm-hmm. I know you had a major change in your career recently. How much do you want to share how much Anderson helped you in any which way in getting that smoothen that process?
I would say so. I just took I started this week. I just took a job.
Congratulations!
Thank you. I just took a job as the VP of Strategic Development and Integration for Mastardi Platt. They, in fact, the day that I started was their 50-year anniversary. So they are their leading provider in my niche field. They do other things as well, but they're growing at scale, and they're just good people. And I'm excited to be on board with them. But this role is really going to utilize like all of the things that we've been building over these last 22 months. So it's really perfect timing as we wrap this up to be launching into something that like I'm going to use this on a daily basis. And so I'm really excited about that. I think I have to credit Anderson and the cohort for preparing me in such a short time, so that I think I probably would have gotten there eventually, but like I described before, it would have been through trial and error, and it would have taken much longer. And so I think I've shortcut that, and that is really due to how the program is structured, but more importantly, the people that have helped me on the journey here.
Awesome. When we were discussing this, you did I found it unique. I did not think of that until now. where when you had a bottleneck, you reached out to professors for some feedback. I know you had a lot of good things to say. You want to share something on that?
Yeah. So again, it's one of those things where like you raise your hand and just say, hey, I need some help. So I reached out to a number of professors for a variety of things. So I reached out to Jane Guerin for our business law class. In addition to the cohort for recommendation for an attorney to review all these documents for my new role, and she had a fantastic recommendation. I reached out to Professor Whitson for the negotiations class, and she was so responsive. She emailed me back immediately and was like, I don't have time to meet with you today, except for like this 15-minute window between when I'm home and when I gotta get on a plane. But I will give you that time if that's all it will take. And that it wasn't gonna fit in that window. But she was like, I have more time tomorrow. So we put a half hour on the calendar. She stayed with me for an hour. Just bouncing ideas off of me and giving me different perspective, and then I took those recommendations and I went into that negotiation and I crushed it. And that's first of all, it's everything that I learned from her class, and then the individual connect with her to just add just these small tweaks that made it so much better. And it's like that all over the place. All you have to do is reach out, and again, these people just want to help. I mean, this is what they do for a living. They love it, and so if you reach out and they're just like, "This is my jam. Yeah, let's talk about it."
Nice. I'm so happy for you, Jacob. I've told this personally also. I'm so happy for you, and I really wish you all the very best in your new role. I'm sure you're just gonna go greater heights from here.
Thank you.
And let's get to the fun part of this conversation. What has been your favorite moment in UCLA so far?
That's a tough one because there are a lot of good moments. I think it's tough. So there's a range. The travel that we do with the program is unique. I've traveled abroad before, but doing it with the EMBAs, totally different, and amazing. But then it's also those small conversations, whether it's at a social event or it's after the slog of August Walk, where you're just trying to download all of the information that you've absorbed, over those repeated days in class. It's really just kind of the connection, I think, is the overarching.
I agree. Favorite Anderson class so far?
Anything from John Ullman. I mean, I'd work with that guy for a poke in the eye. I love John. But there are so many that are good. Cassie Holmes' happiness class. I've never cried so much during writing assignments than I did for that class. Thankfully, I was doing that, in my office at home. But it's so much value.
It's so much about reflection. Right? I love that class also, happiness class by Professor Casey Holmes. Yeah, it's so much about reflection. If you can actually, the cliche, right? If you can actually put in that effort, you can actually take a lot out of it. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. I mean, it's 10x the effort you're putting in.
Yeah.
So if that's nothing, then that's what you're getting out.
Yeah,
but,
yeah.
If you dig deep, then it's really rewarding.
Awesome. And do you have a favorite study group?
Probably my capstone group.
Oh.
We work cohesively. They're just fun people to be around. But all my study groups have been great. you know, the school does a really good job of assembling these groups of people. They always have something that I am lacking, and so and oftentimes these people have things that I have in spades, and so we just there's a mesh there. It's just so good.
You want to give a shout out? Who's part of that group?
For the capstone group?
Yeah.
Troy Moore, Leia, Jonathan, Yao. That's my crew.
Jonathan Perez.
Yes.
Okay. Awesome. And any favorite hangout spot?
So two. Probably Luskin for UCLA.
Mm-hmm.
And then when a small group of us went to Melbourne Business School over the summer, there's a small cafe called Seven Seeds that we walk to every day, every break. So I would classify that one as a hangout spot too.
Nice. Anyone in the class that you want to give a shout out to?
Ben, that's hard. There's so many. Rocky, Shirley, and Jose from my first group are ride or die.
Mm-hmm.
Then they always will be. But there are so many people. So I think it's one of those that is sort of a trap question, kind of like,
No.
I'm up there giving like an Oscar speech and like forgetting people and they're mad later.
No trap questions. Yes.
But no, there's just so many people that add so much incredible value.
All right. So one final question to you then. Whom do you want to give a bear hug to?
I think this has got to go. It's got to go to Danielle and the girls. The three of you have supported me through this. It's been a team effort. I know you guys have sacrificed with me being gone, and me being stressed, and me being distracted. But we are almost there, and you get me back full time. And this is really for you.
Awesome. I love that. Thank you very much for sharing your story, Jacob. I love it. Any parting words? Anything else you want to share?
I think just be willing to ask for help. People are going to be more than willing to help if you ask. And I think that holds a lot of people back.
Yeah.
And it shouldn't.
I think that's very well said. Yeah. Sometimes you have to just have that courage to, as you said, just put up your hand and say, I need help. And there are not 14. There'll be more than that who will be ready to help you instantly.
Yeah. I think, I often think about myself as like being the dumbest guy in the room, and at Anderson, that may be true, but
which is good, by the way.
But I think that's the person that's growing the most.
Yeah, exactly.
And so like be willing to raise your hand and ask the dumb question because somebody else is also thinking that thing and they're relieved that you were brave enough to ask.
I go to this public policy class in Luskin School. The professor there says, there is no bad question.
Yeah.
There is no dumb question. There is no bad question. It's just a question. Thank you again, Jacob, for sharing your story. I love this circle moment for us to to finish this off with a conversation with you. It's so memorable for me. Thank you again. Thank you guys for taking your time and watching this episode. Until next time, see you soon.